Hello everyone, it's Gina from orchidandopal.com, and I am back today with another tutorial using some products from Beebeecraft. And one item in particular really inspired this bracelet design, and that is when I came across this container of buckles, kind of like the ones you would use on a belt, for example, or a watch, in a size that would be perfect to accommodate a peyote stitch bracelet. So through a lot of trial and error, I've come up with this stripe design, which is what I will be sharing today using 5 different colors of Miyuki Delica Beads, which Beebeecraft is also starting to sell now. You can find all different colors of these cylindrical seed beads that fit together perfectly just like bricks and will be great in this project. I'll leave the links to everything right down below the video, including this package of buckles that you can get your hands on at Beebeecraft, as well as the Delica beads. And besides that, you'll just want to use a size 10 or 11 beading needle, some beading thread such as 6-pound test FireLine, and you'll need a pair of scissors. The bracelet that we'll be making today is going to be best for wrists that are about 6 3/4 to about 7.5 inches. And of course, by using these buckles, we're able to make these bracelets sort of adjustable, so we'll be making multiple holes at the end of it, so you can wear it more snug or more loose depending on how you like it. And the black and white houndstooth variety is another one that I was playing around with and created a diagram with on my computer that I hope to be able to share in the future. But I will have a diagram available for the striped variety so that you can follow along with that one. I do recommend you have some knowledge of peyote stitch before attempting this bracelet, and I do have a much easier project tutorial that I will link to in the corner. If you haven't done the even count peyote with the Delica beads, that would be a great place to start. For now, go ahead and pick out your 5 colors of the beads that you want to use for your stripe design. Thread your needle with a comfortable length of beading thread, and then we can jump into this tutorial. The first step in making this bracelet is to just complete the flat even count peyote portion, which is the simplest thing to do. And we're going to be doing a repeating pattern of 5 different colors, 5 rows per color. We'll do that 3 full times, and then for the 4th one, we're going to stop a little bit short, as you'll see in the diagram that I have linked below. I'll make a couple of the stripes with you and also get this project started. And then you'll just continue on until you have your desired length, at which time I will meet you back, and then we're going to work on the side of the bracelet that has the holes for that buckle closure, and then the side of the bracelet that will actually contain and attach to the buckle hardware. But before we get into that, just start out with your first color that you want to use, and I'm going to use this one in this tutorial just because it's probably a little bit easier to see than the darker colors I have over here. And the first step is to pick up 9 of your Delica beads in the same color. And then you can string those down to the end of your beading thread and leave yourself about a 6-inch tail. And you're welcome to use a stop bead if you'd like to. But this will start to come together after you have a couple of rows completed, and it definitely gets easier as you go. So just be patient with this part. If you have to try it a couple times to get the hang of it, don't worry, you're not alone, and practice makes perfect. So since we're doing a bracelet that is going to be 8 beads wide, we picked up the 9th one because that's actually going to start our next row. And what we're going to do, you can just go ahead and move those top 2 beads up with your needle a little bit if you want to. Go down through the 3rd bead only with your needle. Pull that. And now you have something that looks like this. You have the 2 that are sitting side by side on the top, and you're coming out of the 1 Delica bead right below that. Next, you're going to pick up another one of your beads, the same exact color. You can slide it down first if you'd like to. Then skip that next bead, so I'm just sliding that up to my work, moving the other one up a little bit, and we're going to go through the next one. So skip a bead, go through the next, and pull. And then do that again, pick up a bead, skip the next one, and go through the next, and pull. And we'll do that one more time in this section. So pick up a bead, skip the next one, but sew through the next. And once you pull that together, you should have something that looks like this. So you have alternating rows going 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and you have your width of your bracelet all set out and ready to go. We're going to continue on with the same color. We're going to pick up a bead. This time we're going to go up through the bead that's sticking out. See, it gets easier because now you can just go through the beads that are sticking out. And you'll use that as your guide. Pick up another bead and go through the next one that's sticking out. Repeat that 2 more times to the end of this row. Here's what you have, and it's all kind of together now, so you don't even need a stop bead at this point anyway. And now we're just going to continue on in the other direction, so we're picking up a bead and then heading down through the one that's sticking out and doing that all along this next row. Now let's go back up. We'll pick up a bead, go through the one that's sticking out, and repeat all the way up. So keep doing that until you have 5 beads in each of these rows of peyote. Even if they're alternating, you'll have 5 in each one. And at that point, you're going to switch to your next color. So I'm going to speed up the video until I get to that point, then we'll switch colors together and move on to the next step. So here's our first striped section, and we're ready to move to our next color. And just remember to pull these beads nice and tight after each addition so they click into place and you have that nice tightly woven beadwork. Now I'm coming up out of this bead on the top right, and I'm ready to pick up my next color that I want. So I'm going to do that and just do the same exact thing. So I'm going to go down through the bead that's sticking out, pick up another bead, and continue doing that all the way down this row. That got us started with the next color. And then we'll go up in the other direction, picking up a bead with our new color, sewing up through the one that's sticking out, and so on, all the way up through this portion. Pull it nice and tight. And just like we did before, you'll go until you have 5 of that color on each row and then switch to your next color and keep doing that and just repeat your pattern until you have the entire length of your bracelet that's done in the even count flat peyote. We're going to be ending down here on a section that has just gotten started, a new stripe color. Again, that'll be in the diagram that you can refer to. And then we're going to start working on this side of the bracelet, which is where we are going to have the holes located directly in our beadwork that we can use for adjustability. So keep beading and we will meet back once you get to this point. And welcome back. So right now my needle is coming up out of this lightest color bead on the right at the very top of the bracelet. And this is one that is indented to the left. So make sure that's where you're starting out so you can follow along the same way. And right now we're actually going to be working on just the top 3 rows and extending those out before we move on to anything else. So pick up one of that same color that you're currently exiting. Go down through the next bead that's sticking out. Then pick up another one of that same color bead and sew down through the next bead that's sticking out. Next, sew up through the bead that's directly to the left. We're just following our thread path so we can get back up to the top. And I'm going to head diagonally up through those next 2 slightly to the left. I'll go up this one, which is the one right before the top right bead. And then I'm going to head down through that new bead that we added that is on the top right. And we can pick up another one of our beads in the same color, then go through the next bead that is sticking out there that we just placed. Then pick up a new bead. Head up diagonally through those 2 beads on the left. We'll pick up another bead, this time heading down through the 2 beads diagonally toward the left. Head up through the bead that's next to that. Pick up another one and head up through the next. So you can see we're just adding on that same color, this time doing peyote stitch with 3 rows. And we're going to do that until we have, once again, 5 of each of those colors in these 3 rows before we switch to the next one. So let's keep going. We'll pick up another bead, go down through the bottom 2, pick up another one, go through the 2 that are heading over to the left, and make sure you pull all this nice and tight as you go. We'll head down through the next bead on the right, where we can pick up another one and insert that. So as you can see now with this next section, we've got 5 of each of that color in the stripe, and now we're going to move on to our next color, which in my case is going to be the black. So keep going in the same manner, again, following the length in the diagram that is linked below to just continue to add length right now onto these top 3 rows. Bringing back the example piece, we're currently working on this top section. So keep going until you have all of those in place in the top 3 rows, and then we'll meet back. All right, now I'm going to insert my last bead that's going to go right here. I'm going to proceed up through the next 2 Delica beads, and that's our top 3 rows. And then what we're going to do is just weave up and down through these beads on the edge to follow our thread path and get back to the main part of our beadwork, which is where we are going to work on the bottom 3 rows next. So weave back and forth, up and down through these Delica beads on the edge. And then you can sew down through the beads like this. Go down through those 3. And down through the next 2. And then you'll want to be coming out of this bead right here, which is on the 3rd row from the bottom. That's where we'll pick up with sewing our bottom 3 rows. And I am just about out of thread, so what I'm going to do is just weave this back in a little bit more and trim off any excess that I have, and I will start a new piece of thread in order to show you the next steps. I will be right back. All right, so again, with the new piece of thread I have with the needle and everything exiting out of this 3rd bead that's sticking out, we're going to pick up that same color, then go through the next bead that's sticking out at the very bottom, and continue on beading just like we did at the top in order to complete these bottom 3 rows. And then once that's done, we will come back and connect them. So I'm just weaving in those beads in peyote stitch, picking up a bead, sew up through that one, pick up another one, then down through these 2 at the bottom, pick up another one. We're doing kind of like figure 8s. Sew through the 2 at the left and down the one next to that, and so on. And keep going, making your stripes the same way, 5 beads per color in each row. And then we'll meet back once your other strip is complete. And welcome back, and I'm at my last bead, picking that one up and going down through these 2 at the very end. And like we did before, to get back to this area, we want to just sew back through these beads. I'll just go through the ones on the end, back and forth until we get to the section where these strips kind of start to meet. And then we're going to bring this all together and leave ourselves some of those holes for the adjustment area. And then you'll want to just position your needle in such a way that you are exiting out of the 3rd seed bead in that first stripe color, so like right there. So be coming out of that 3rd one, and I apologize if that variety is a little bit more difficult to see. But now we're in the position to continue on and bring these strips together. And what we're going to do is just leave this area empty. That'll be our first hole. Then we'll pick up 2 of the same color that we're currently working in. And then this time we're going to head over diagonally, and I'm going to head up through these 3 beads on the top. On the top 3 rows, and I'll show you that at a better angle in just a moment. So we've inserted 2 new beads, and on this top row I went through the 2 lightest color beads heading diagonally up, and then exited out of the new color that's right there positioned at the very top. And then we're going to head down diagonally through the 3 beads next to that, heading toward the left. And in this case, that's 3 of my black ones in that new color. And now we're going to pick up 2 more of the lightest stripe color. And this time we'll head down through the last bead in that stripe on the 3rd row from the bottom. So basically we're skipping a bead in between where that one is positioned in that new section in the center. And now we have 2 of these positioned here, and we'll be bringing these together as well. But for now, we're just getting the beads in place. Continue sewing through the next 2 beads diagonally to the left. And then you can just follow your thread path. I'm going up through the 2 toward the left. I'll go down these 2, and then I'm going to head up through these 3 diagonally to be coming out of the second of that stripe color at the top of the 3rd row. That's where we're going to insert our next beads for the separation of the other hole. So I'm coming out of this bead right here, and I'll pick up 2 more in that same color stripe. And then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th one in that stripe, and head up diagonally through the 3 beads at the top and get through the first 2. And then I'll go through the next one. So I'm through those 3 beads. Then you can sew down diagonally toward the left through the next 3 beads. And once again, pick up 2 more of your Delica beads in that same color. Skip over a bead from where this one is attached. And go down those 3 in the bottom 3 rows. And once again, just follow your thread path. And this time you'll want to be coming out of the first Delica bead in that next color. These are hard to tell apart, but I have some plain black ones and I have some with the iris finish that are kind of a dark purple, and I'm coming out of that first one down there. I'll pick up 2 of those same beads, and then I'm going to count to that 3rd one in that new section up above and go diagonally up those 3, or whatever I can get to at first. I'll sew up the next one, and then sew down through the next 3 beads toward the left. Pick up 2 more in that same color combination. And sew down through the 3 at the bottom, skipping over, leaving 1 bead in between. Follow the same process to get to your next section. And this time I'm coming out of the last bead of that color in the stripe at the top there in the 3rd row from the bottom. This time I'll pick up 2 of our next color, and then we'll sew up through the 2nd bead of that next stripe color at the top. And we'll sew up through the next 2. And then sew down through those 3. Pick up 2 more in that same color. Skip this bead down here and go through the next one as well as the next few beads. And next, just follow your thread path weaving through your beads until you're coming out of this bead here on the end of the top of that bottom 3-row section. And you can pick up 2 of the beads that match that same color. And then sew up through the 3 that are on the top. Next, sew down through the 3 next to that on the left-hand side. And you can pick up one of those beads in the same color, skip the next bead and sew through the next. Then sew down the bead to its bottom left and up through the one on the right. Pick up another bead in that color and sew up through the next 4 beads at the very top. Next, sew through that entire diagonal line of beads next to that and pull. We just wanted to shape up that end. Then sew up through the 1 bead next to that on the left. Pick up another bead in the same color. And you can sew up through the next one right above that. Place that in and pull that nice and tight. Sew up through the next bead above to the right, and then down through the one on the left. And then pick up another bead, and we're going to fill in this gap. So you can sew through the bead in the next row, place that and pull tight. Sew down through the next bead to the bottom right, and up through the next one to the left of that. Pick up another bead and sew up through that one. Place it and pull. Sew up through the next bead on the top of that one, third from the end. Then sew down through the one on the left, which is the new color. Pick up one of your beads in that new color, then sew down through that bead in the next row. Then sew down through the bead in the next row and through the one directly to the left of that. And you can pick up another bead in that next color and sew through the next one above it. And the one at the upper right of that. And you can see we've filled in this end section. So at this point, we want to just start to bring these rows of 2 together where we're separating out those holes and tie them in nicely to our peyote stitch. Right now, I'm going to continue on down through the 2 beads there on the left, down through that next darker purple one, head down diagonally, going down to that bead that's on the end, and then just weave your way over so that you are coming up on that next section where there's 2 of those little stripes next to each other. Heading up through the first one in that stripe section, I'm going to go up through the bead in the lower right and then tie it in with the bead that's on the upper left. And you can see already that they're starting to sit closer together and at that little bit of a diagonal that matches our existing peyote stitch. So that's just what we're doing now, is just some reinforcing and bringing these together a little bit better. Now I'm going to go up through some of these above. And I'll go up through this one. And this is something that you can really do in many different ways. This is just one example of how you can bring those little stripes together. I'm gonna go down here. And then this time I'm gonna go down through the bead at the top right of that little stripe. And then sew down through the one at the bottom left. And probably just continue down. And once you're comfortable with how those are pulled together, you can just then move on to your next section and pretty much do the same thing. So keep going, bring your stripes together a little bit more and reinforce this section. I've got 2 more stripes to go right there. And then you can knot off your working thread or weave it back in a little bit. And we're going to begin working on the opposite side where the buckle will be. All right, so now that that end of the bracelet is complete, let's work on the other side where we're going to attach our buckle. So you can go ahead and just pick one color if you want to just make it simple. You can go with your next stripe color if you want. Since it's a little easier to see, I guess I'll go with this lighter purple. And we're gonna work with the top 2 and bottom 2 rows on this side, adding in 9 beads on each one. So again, just continuing with our peyote stitch. And I'm coming up out of the top right-hand side of this bead. This one is indented to the left a little bit. And I've picked up a bead. I'm going to go down through the next one, pick up a bead, go up through the new one we just added, and repeat that over and over till you have 9 of that color on each of those rows. And pull these nice and tight after each addition. Now just follow your thread path going through both of those rows to the main part of your beadwork. And this will tighten these beads up anyway, so that's a good thing. So go back and forth diagonally through these rows. And then follow your beads down to the bottom 2, where you'll complete the same thing on the bottom 2 rows. And this time you can be coming out of that bead right there, so you're set up to get started with your next row. We'll pick up a bead and sew through the one on the bottom that's sticking out, and just keep doing the exact same thing you did. And once you have your stripe on this side, we will meet back and start attaching it to our buckle. And I have woven back through that section again, just like we did up here. So now my thread is coming up and out of this bead right here in the corner, this purple one. And what we can do, I have the buckle with the bar part that is on the top, and this can go either way you like. We can set it on here and just bring that first loop around. That's what's going to hold one side of this clasp in place. And I'm going to sew down through these 2 beads at the end of that loop to start to bring this all together. And then I'm going to sew up through the 2 purple beads that are attached to the main part of the beadwork. And we're just going to loop around that a couple times. So again, I'm going to go through the beads at the end of the loop, and then through the other 2 beads that are on the main beadwork. Through these 2. And then you can just sew around that strip of beads again by following the thread path back and forth through those. And that will just reinforce that section. But basically that is one loop on. As you can see, just keep going around to reinforce it, and then do the same thing with your other one where you'll wrap this loop around this side and attach this end of the strip to your main beadwork. And then we can add a couple simple straps to hold the other side of our bracelet in place once it's closed. So here's what our bracelet looks like now with our closure in place, and I've got my thread coming out of this Delica bead. It's the second black one from this side, and I'm going to make 2 straps that are the same size, and they're going to consist of 14 Delica beads in 2 rows. But first I'm just going to go ahead and string on 14. And we'll pull those down. And then sew through the seed bead on the opposite side. I'll just go through that second one right there. And then I'll sew through the first purple bead I get to on that side. Next, I'll pick up another purple bead, and this time sew down through the third Delica bead, or the one right next to where we were coming out. And I'm going to sew up through the one just to the right of that, and back up through the new seed bead we just added. So we're going to attach another row to this first one, and we're going to do that by picking up another bead, this time going down through those first 2 beads on the left. And now let's go up through the 2 beads on the right this time. We can pick up another bead, then go through the bead that will be sitting next to it on the left, as well as the one right above it, and then sew through the 2 beads on the right, and keep repeating this pattern. So once again, another bead, sewing through the one that'll be next to it on the other side, as well as the one after that, and then back up through the other 2. So you can see we're just placing these beads side by side, sort of in a square stitch manner. Pick up a bead, go up through those 2, and down through those 2. And that's going to sit on top of this section of your flat peyote. You can see that it leaves a little bit of wiggle room, enough for the other side of the bracelet to slide through. So keep going in that manner all the way until the end of this strip, and then we'll meet back. So there's one loop complete, and when you get to your other side, you'll just be attaching that to the other side of your bracelet, and just go through some of those beads maybe a few times to reinforce it. And then you can work your way over a little bit. Perhaps just leaving a bead space in between. You can make a second loop that'll just add some more security to this. And you'll do the exact same thing where you'll pick up 14 of your Delica beads, and then you will attach those to the other side. Going through the opposite side of your beadwork, and coming out of the Delica next to that to start working your square stitch. And I'm going to reinforce this area a little bit more before I do that. Weaving through some of the beads first on the peyote section. I'm going to come out that purple one on this side, and then we'll continue on like we did before, stitching the additional row of purple beads onto the first one. And we'll have our second loop in place. So there's the other one done, and just like before, I'm just gonna weave that back into this side, and I'll also be finishing off this thread since I'm done with it. So just by weaving this back and forth a number of times in different directions and following the thread path, that thread will be secure enough where I shouldn't have to actually make a knot in the beadwork. It should be nice and tight and not come apart. You can see I'm doing a lot of back and forth though through these beads, being careful. The last thing you want to do is crack any at this point when you're just about done. And I'm going to trim it right there. And our beaded bracelet is now complete. And now what we can do is simply put this on our wrist and feed that side in to our buckle and choose where we want to place the bar like that through one of those holes, and then feed the end right underneath those straps. So that is all for our bracelet tutorial today. I hope you enjoyed it. As a reminder, you can get those buckles and the Delica beads now at Beebeecraft. And I'll leave the links to everything right down below the video, as well as the materials list and quantities. I also have a coupon code for Beebeecraft. It's Opal5, and I'll leave that right down below as well. That will save you $5 off your purchase of $40 or more, and you'll also get free shipping internationally on all orders over $25. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this tutorial, or if you plan to give it a try, or anything else you'd like to say. Go ahead and give the video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Also hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and feel free to share this tutorial wherever you'd like. That's all I have for now. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and as always, happy beading.